Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a short little demo on some of the networking considerations that you are going to have. This is going to be the bare minimum basics for networking. We will be getting into more details on, say, VPC networks and all of that fun stuff, but I just kind of wanted to show you some of the gotchas and some of the little issues that you may encounter when working with networking in a cloud provider. Now, as always, this is going to be Google Cloud specific. Your mileage may vary for Azure, for AWS, DigitalOcean, whoever else you're using, it'll be different. But the concepts are probably going to be transferable. Now, a couple of things to be concerned with in this instance. Now I'm going to show a demo here, and I guess I'll just slide over right now. I've got a couple of virtual machines that I set up. Now I'm in the compute engine. They're basically just the micro instance, the free tier. If you have one of them up and running, I'll delete these off when I'm done because I don't really need virtual machines taking up space on my credit card statement, or I guess my credit statement. But they're going to be a good demonstration of how things can be accessible. Now, with some of the other services that we've kind of looked at, uh, with some of these services that we've been talking about, whether we're doing App Engine or whether we're doing Cloud Functions, there's going to be a publicly accessible URL, right? Meaning that all of the networking concerns are set up for us. However, when we're in the infrastructure as a service type of situation, meaning we are setting up the servers, we are setting up the infrastructure we need to enable whatever cloud tasks we're going to be doing, we have to consider the network too. So, couple of little things. Now, I've got two instances here set up. So these are, you guys can't see all of the right one, but basically this is just the SSH session. So I click the little SSH button down here, got my Windows. Again, you can set this up to work with a local terminal if you want, but in that case, you're going SSH keys. But kind of the thing to demonstrate is how networking is working behind the scenes here. So these are both Ubuntu servers, nothing stopping you from using Windows, Red Hat, CentOS, whatever you want. Um, but if I do IPA or ifconfig if you prefer, oh, it's not there. I forgot, we don't have ifconfig anymore in Ubuntu. 10.128.0.2 is our IP. And if I go over here, 10.128.0.3. Right? We actually can see that in our cloud console over here. So that is our internal IP, meaning that these addresses are accessible inside of our cloud provider, inside of Google Cloud here. This internal IP is not accessible externally. So if I were to go ahead and say, and I set up Apache on this instance here, which is my 10.3, if I try to go to 10.128.0.3, it's not going to know what I'm talking about. And the reason for that is that this 10.IP address is internal to Google Cloud, meaning that we can resolve it internally. Our services can talk to each other through this unique IP address, but it's only within the context of the VPC network that we have set up kind of by default by creating our virtual machines. Other Google services, so if you're worried about this 10 dot number clashing, say, with other accounts, with other users, this is specific to your particular cloud setup, right? Other people can have the same 10 dot number as you, and it'll be fine. It's basically like you're behind a router and everybody's got the same 192.168 address range. Here, this is internal to our VPC network. So this is not accessible. But if I check the publicly accessible external IP address, so we see it starts with 34 dot something, and this will change depending on, kind of what the DHCP servers at Google are providing. But these are now open to the internet, and this is copied correctly. Okay. So I just dropped in the IP address. I haven't really tweaked the setup too much, so we just see the default Apache page. Um, but if you want an external web application or an external application that you're building to talk to Google Cloud, specifically say to a compute engine instance, either you have to access it through the gcloud command or a library to talk to Compute Engine, or you can interact with it RESTfully through this external IP address. So that's one thing. A little gotcha here as well, and this is mainly if you're doing like website development types of activities with these compute instances. If you try clicking these links here, by default, it's going to give you an HTTPS URL. And I'm using Chrome here, and it's been very nice and automatically trying HTTPS, and then it realizes it can't find basically how to resolve that since we are not running a secured socket layer server. So it defaults to HTTP. Depending on your browser, depending on your system setup, that may not happen. You click this link and it just goes nowhere. Basically, you have to take off the S, so it's just a straight up non-secured website. Obviously, if you're doing something important, make sure you set up SSL and secure that, end to end. Okay, so we have internal IPs, only accessible inside of our little walled garden here. Again, this is a VPC network, which is something we'll talk about very soon. External IP, the public can see, right? I'm not connected to anything specific. I can just go to this IP address and anybody could see that. Other thing, let's say that I want these servers to talk to each other. I guess I should mention too that for that website, I did open up the ports. So the HTTPS ports, that's a little checkbox when you set up the instance, because that's a pretty common activity. Otherwise, you have to go into the firewall and start setting stuff up, and that's a separate talk. But if I want these guys to talk to each other, I could say curl 10.128.0.3. So this is 0.2, this is 0.3. If I type curl, oops, I'm just going to get the raw website since I actually have set up the web server there. That's not what I wanted to do. That's a later task. Ping 10.128.0.2. So we get a response, right? So these guys know how to talk to each other. I can also do that externally as well. So 34.72.3.199. So just looking at the IP addresses for instance 2 here, still get a response. Right, nothing too different. And likewise over here, I can ping this other server. And depending on your operating system, ping may not exist. It may be blocked, just depends. Ubuntu, it's open by default here. I can also say curl, and this is what I did before, so I'll just arrow up. So I just did a curl to the website. What I wanted to do was actually show it like a real site, so that there's no ambiguity there. But I can just get the website. And again, that's accessible either internally or externally. If I were to set up another cloud account and I tried accessing this 10 dot number, it would not be accessible. It's inside of that network. It can also do something like this. So curl test.html, something I did dump in there. Hello there. So I just basically created a little extra fun website. Fun being 2 words, but kind of a nice for a little bit of a demo. Anyway, these are just some of the main things to deal with. Now, again, if you are trying to access a let's say you set up a Compute Engine instance and you're trying to access some kind of a service on it. So maybe you've set up an FTP server, maybe you've set up a video game server, or a chat server where you're relaying messages. Maybe it is a RESTful API of some kind that's running on a particular port. It may not work by default. You're going to have to go and open up whatever ports are necessary there. And the one thing to kind of end with on this little topic is that, again, firewalls are slightly separate of a topic, but there are going to be 2 layers of firewall here. So the first layer is actually inside of your Compute Engine instances. So each of these windows you see here, these are full-fledged Ubuntu servers, right? I can also, let me make this a little bit bigger, I can create Windows servers. I can create CentOS servers or Debian, right? The operating system is completely up to you based on what is available. Each of these are actual operating systems with a built-in firewall. So if I wanted to say update something in Ubuntu, I would need to work with Firewall D. If I'm doing an older version of Ubuntu, it'd be UFW. Or if you're going a more CentOS, Red Hat-based operating system, you're going to be using IP tables. Or I think the newer versions have Firewall D as well. Windows Server, you'll be going through the advanced security panels, but we have low-level blocking for ports. The other gotcha that we're going to kind of have is the Google Firewall. I thought I clicked that, maybe I didn't. But you see here, so I just went to Firewall, and this is inside of our VPC networks. And again, this is a separate topic. But here are all the ports and protocols that we are allowing and that we are blocking. So if you are seeing or you're expecting activity and nothing is happening, there's a good chance your data is being trapped either by the local firewall on the operating system or at the VPC network level at the kind of perimeter firewall for your environment. We'll get into that separately, but just kind of a little bit of an overview on how basic networking works at the infrastructure level. Again, internal IP addresses versus external. Think of it like your home network just kind of scaled up to a cloud-based scale, I suppose. Anyway, hope this was useful for you. I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.